Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the show. So today we're talking about the MSNBC bragging that Joe Biden can sell himself out more than Donald Trump can. So let's go.
Tag. This is really cheesy, Alex, is the 2024 presidential election. Joining us now, a look at the fundraising race. Former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Radner. Steve, let's start with Trump and your first chart. I'm just curious, though, does his money, is it used for the campaign or can it go to his legal fees? Exactly what does his fundraising look like?
That's a great question, Mika, and we're going to get to his legal fees in just 1 second because you're on the right track. But let's start with the overall numbers for the campaign. So I'm going to compare Trump and Biden. Trump actually announced back in November of 2022, one of the earliest announcements that I can certainly remember. So he got off to a pretty good start in his fundraising. And this is the Democratic National Committee. Biden was not yet a candidate. And then over the summer of last year, you can see what happened here, which is that Trump continued to raise money at a pretty good pace. And I'm going to show you why he was able to do that. But Biden took off. He announced and immediately came out of the gates with really strong fundraising totals. And then in the fourth quarter, you can see what happened. Trump dropped off, Biden took off. And so in total, Biden has substantially outraised Trump in this cycle.
Is this really something to brag about when you can raise more money from corporate PAC donors? Hey, I'm going to do the bidding of them even more than Donald Trump will. This is why the political system's completely broken, because they look at this as a good thing.
And in fact, Biden has also substantially outraised what Obama raised for his reelection in 2012, while Trump raised substantially less for his reelection than he raised last time. So how did Trump raise this money? Well, indictments had something to do with it. So you can see what happened. I think you've seen some of this before, that every time Trump got indicted, his fundraising soared. His biggest single day was after Georgia when he raised $4.2 million. And of his total fundraising, 64 million, it was general fundraising, but 40 million of it was really tied directly to the indictments. And look, I can just say about all this, as it happens, my wife and I had a fundraiser for Biden last night, and the enthusiasm for him is really strong. Obviously, a lot of his
How can you say that stuff with a straight face? I was at a fundraiser for Biden the other day, and they were so enthused about him being the president again. Isn't this like a little bit of a conflict of interest when it comes to journalism? Apparently not MSDNC.
Trump, but it's also a good amount of it is pro-Joe Biden.
All right, so the legal troubles are actually adding to his fundraising. I think that's why he shows up in court, actually, to sort of make little speeches that get people all riled up. So the 2023 money raised for presidential campaigns between the DNC and the RNC, how are they doing?
So as you said, Trump raised a lot of money from his indictments, but he's also, as you also mentioned, let me just cover that point that you raised a minute ago, he's also spending a lot on his legal fees from his fundraising. Last year, he took $55 million of money that his donors gave him and used it on his legal fees. May well have been all of his legal costs for what we know. In the second half of the year, he took $29 million. Most of it came from, this is MAGA Inc. This is his PAC for super biggest donors. So people like Linda McMahon from WWE are in here. I don't know whether they would be surprised to know that 60% of all the money they gave to this PAC went to Trump's legal fees, was funneled all the way around here and ended up in legal fees. I don't know whether the people who contributed, even a lot of those small dollar contributions that you saw over there, would know that 10% of their money went to pay Trump's legal fees.
So,
and he's announced that he will continue to do that.
I think I'm going to sound really naive.
So the point I think they're trying to make is Donald Trump is scamming all these people and he's just using it for all of his legal fees.
Here again. But is that allowed? I mean, or is it unprecedented? But these are, 91 counts, federal indictments, civil cases. He's been found liable. This is not just like a kind of a random court battle that has nothing to do with the state of our democracy. And do these people know that their money is paying his legal fees?
Well, if they didn't know, hopefully they know now, but there has been some notice of it. Look, is it legal? I assume so. No one has said that it isn't. You can, this whole thing, by the way, of course, is a lot of loopholes and a lot of funny business that goes on in terms of people giving more than they really want you to, but being able to fund it through these PACs and back into the campaign, which is over here actually, and so forth. And so it's really, it is unprecedented in my experience. I've never heard of anyone taking legal fees of this magnitude to pay what are in effect personal fees. I think his argument would be these charges were in connection with his official duties and therefore he can take this money to do that. But that's what's been happening, an enormous amount of money going over there.
So, Steve, let's move to that last chart. Mika mentioned the big spread in fundraising within the presidential campaign between the DNC and the RNC to this point. How does it look?
So again, I think people think of the Republicans as the party of money, that they outraise the Democrats all the time.
And this is why privately the Republican establishment candidates would say they hate Donald Trump. He's been a political loser for them in 2022. He's a political loser for them in 2020. And they're sick of losing and they're all cutting into their wallet books. They're unable to raise money with him as the candidate. And at this point, they're just like, well, I guess we're just stuck with him.
It's not true. It was not true, as I just showed you, on Trump versus Biden. It's also not true in other places. So this is the Democratic National Committee compared to the Republican National Committee. This is raising money at the party level. You can see how substantially the Democrats have outraised the Republicans. Maybe this has something to do with Ronna McDaniel not staying on after this cycle, but who knows? And then on the Senate level, it's actually pretty close to a push. But look on the House level, how much of a difference there is between the two of them. And what this translates into is cash on hand. And you can see that, again, the Democratic National Committee has more than twice as much cash on hand as the Republican National Committee. The same actually happens to be true at the Senate. The same is true at the House. And so the Democrats so far are winning the money race by a long way. It's not everything, but it's something.
All right, Steve Ratner, thank you once again for the charts. We appreciate it.
I think this is something to brag about. Being like, hey, we can raise more money and sell out to more people than Donald Trump even can, and the Republicans even can. This isn't a good look.